Morning everyone, Happy New Year, welcome to 2024. It's the 1st of January and we're going to show you around the Smallholding. We've got some big plans for this year, like we always do. Whether we meet them all or not, we'll see. But we'll start as we mean to go on and we'll throw all the ideas out. So we're just going to take you around and tell you what we've got in store. Right, so first of all, while we're down here with the sheep, we might as well start with them. So our plans for them this year, these two are our pets, these two here, and these two are for the freezer. Now, I think we're going to keep it simple again this year. Last year, we're just looking back on last year's video, and I think we had about 11 sheep all in all, 4 ewes and 7 lambs. So this year, we've only got 4. By the end of February, we'll probably be down to 2. And it's been miles easier. They've been outside all year. We haven't had to put them in. It has been a hell of a wet year, so keeping them off the wet areas has been a little bit of a problem. But because there's only 4, it's been pretty easy. So I think we're going to do the same this year. We'll maybe in the spring, when all the lambs are coming along, we'll probably pick up 2 or 3 spring orphan lambs and we'll just raise them for the freezer. But because it's been simple, we want to keep things simple. And while we've still got the 2 pet lambs, we don't really want to introduce any more like ewes with the maturing lamb or anything like that. So that's the plan for them. Keep it simple. We'll still have lamb for the freezers. And yeah, that's pretty much what we're going to do with them.
Well, as Stephen said, we've got 2 pets, so this one's been with us for a long time, and Carol has been companion to Nettle, and will continue to be moving forward. Now, you may wonder why we've reduced in size. We actually had a lot more lambs, as Stephen alluded to, last year, and that worked really well for us, but from a smallholder's point of view, it's a lot of work, not just only to feed them and maintain them, but to process them at the other end. And although we're lucky enough that Stephen can do that, it still is a lot of work for him to do on top of his full-time job as well. Now, that does mean that we will have less food for the freezer, but based on how much of other food we've got, which we'll talk about shortly, we think that what we've got planned for this year, so 2 lambs going in the freezer and an additional couple coming in the spring, will be more than enough for our family of 4. Now, some people might find that a little bit strange to talk about while I'm sat here with the animals themselves, but that's all part of smallholding. And one thing you will get here is the reality of the smallholding. So let's see what else Stephen's got to say.
Just while we are down here with the sheep, just another thing we need to get sorted this year. We didn't protect any of the trees down here, so the sheep have actually eaten all the bark around the trees. The trees have died, and while we've had all these storms and this wet weather and the wind, they've actually blew a load over. So this is the most recent victim to it. We've got another 3 or 4 down over there, and I've already started last year taking the other ones that were dead and have fell down. So I've already got a pile of wood over there that I need to get sorted. I've got another 5 or 6 dead trees in here that I need to get down and sorted, which will be wood for the fire in the coming years, because we've got plenty stacked for the next 2 or 3 years. This will just be a welcome addition to the pile. Well, as you can see by the ground, it's absolutely sodden. We've never had this much rain while we've been living here in the 8 years we've been here. It's just been non-stop and it feels like we've never had a break. And this is the result of the ground. So we're just heading over now to where we had the pigs last year and see what that's looking like. So this is the area we had the pigs in last year. As a lot of you might know, we had 2 Gloucestershire roll spots and we had them for a fortnight. We had them in the barn. And then we moved on to an area we had over in the paddock, and then they end up in here because they just turned that over in no time. So we got them in about the February, the March, and they went end of August. So we had them about 6 or 7 months. And in that time, they absolutely turned this over lovely. And in 4 months, even though the weather's been rubbish and miserable and cold, it's grew back like this. So by the time we start looking again in March, this will be really high, really ready for them. And we'll start them in the barn and then we'll put them straight into here. We're not sure yet if this is going to be big enough to hold them for the 6 or 7 months that we're going to have them, but as a starting point, it's absolutely ideal. And all we have to do is a couple of little renovations, just pen the house back in, and where we took them out and down there where we brought the trailer up to let them out, we cut the fence. That'll just need reinforcing and replacing, but that's nothing, minimal jobs. So we'll get all the minimal jobs out of the way first before we get on to the big jobs. So we'll go over next to show you what we're on about doing in the paddock.
This is actually one of the nicest, brightest days we've had in a long time. It's it's really nice to see some sun. Now the plan this year, I don't know if Stephen mentioned it or not, is to get 2 more pigs. Breed wise we possibly will go with the same breed, I'm not sure, and we'll do a bit of research, and sometimes it's about what's available as well. But the end of March will be a perfect time because that's when Easter falls this year. Easter's actually early, and that means that I'll have a couple of weeks at home because both Stephen and I work full time, and I usually take off 2 weeks off the paid job to stay at home to get certain activities done in the garden and with the animals. No. Well, this area has been under a lot of discussion over the years. So you may or may not know, previously we've used this area to try and grow vegetables in, but we've also raised our pigs in here as well. So size wise, for those that are aware, it's actually a typical UK allotment size. It's classed as a 10 rod row. So it is a really good size for growing in. It's also a perfect size for having the pigs in, but unfortunately the growing didn't work out in here. So what we've decided is we've covered it all because of the amount of weeds that came in here. It's full with nettles, thistles. So after the pigs moved out last year, we covered it all with membrane. Now due to the extreme storms that we get here sometimes, we've had to really batten down the hatches on it with all of these pallets and fencing until we decided what to do. Now Stephen and I have had a good chat about it, and we do think that this area is going to be best to go back to grass, because here on the Smallholding we've got about 3.5 acres in total, but that includes all of the buildings as well, and so that means that there's a lot less land than we would really like. So we've got to be very careful with land management and making sure that that works for us. So the more grass for the animals, the better. And even though we're going to have less sheep this year, we still want to make sure that we do the best by the land, and turning this back over to grass we think is going to be the best option at the moment. Now we did talk about putting some fruit trees down here, or some fruit cage, and bringing all the fruit down here, but we're going to tell you what changes we're making up at the top shortly.
So as you can see where Tracy's just come from in there, what we're turning back to paddock, we're going to take away some paddock, so that's why we were discussing turning that back to paddock, because what we lose here we'll gain there. And this is what we've got planned for the ducks. Now as you can see in the background, the ducks are in there and it's just sodden again, and this is just water problems. But as you can see behind me, when we do get a lot of rain, it causes like a natural little pond area what the ducks love. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring a fence from the outside fence there, probably to about here where I'm stood, and then running straight up parallel and take away all that horrible Harris fencing out the way, just to make it look aesthetically better, and it'll give the ducks more area, and it'll incorporate all this wet area for them as well, so we're not having to change the pond as much in the actual pen. So just while I splodge my way up here where we're going to put the fence, so the fence is going to run all the way up here, and we're going to show you we've got a lot of tidying up to do on the Smallholding this year. For some reason stuff is just accumulating and we need to get rid of it. We do tend to keep a lot of stuff just in case we need it, but I think we're going to have to be a bit brutal this year and just have a good tidy out. So up into this corner where our gate goes through into the ducts and into the paddock. So this is where the fence is going to come to in theory and on first draft. We have been talking about loads of stuff over the past couple of months, and this is the best idea we've come up with. So we're going to just run the fence from there, we're going to take all that out, and this is going to be the ducks' permanent home, because they come out of the barn over there, down the little pathway, and then they're into that area. And we are always going to have ducks, whether it be these ducks or different ducks, or maybe some geese way down in the future, who knows, but this will be the ideal area, permanent area for them. We're also starting to collect the duck eggs now, because we've got a project for them as well, which I'll show you later on in the video.
Now just down from where we've been talking about the ducks is the shed that we've been using as basically for winter protection for the sheep. Now at the moment the sheep have moved over into the big garden, as we call it, just because there's more grass in there for them, and the weather hasn't been too bad that they've needed the protection. But as you can see here, we've had some really bad storm damage to the ground that we stood on. And also, if you remember, if you saw a few videos back, this area that Stephen and I stood in at the moment actually flooded really badly. So one thing we need to be conscious of as we move into this year is if that happens again, and when we're using this shed, because the plan is that we're going to use this shed in the summer. This will be the summer residence for our chickens. So at the moment, everything, we'll take a look where they all are next, but at the moment everything is still in the barn and has got access to outside. But in the summer, the plan is that we will have our older hens back in the shed, and that'll give them access to the paddock behind me, which will hopefully work out really well.
Right, so as you can see in the background, that's where we've just come from, the paddock area, but we've got this gate tied shut at the minute while the goats are in there. So this is currently where the goats are having their winter residence. So they've got the pen in the barn, they've got the little doorway there to come out, and at the minute this is all fenced off. So what we've got planned for this area is this was our old mucky from last year, and it's all rotted down well enough to use. So we've got plans for this. We're going to clear it all out and put it over into some new beds that we're building, which we'll show you later. So once all this is cleared out, I'm going to take it all down and I'm going to extend this out and obviously get rid of all this rubbish. Like I said, we've got a lot of tidying up to do this year. This is all just past projects and clean-ups that we move from one place to another. So all this is going to go, and I'm going to extend the goats' pen out to where the muck heaps currently are, and I'm going to fence it all off, build them a play area platform inside here. And it's going to be the summer where they're going to live in the summer as well. But for the summer, when the ground's a lot better, I'm just going to cut a gate in one of the pallets and open that up so they'll have access to all the paddock as well as here, but they'll still live in the barn. Because so hopefully by keeping everything simple and freeing up that time, it'll give us more time to concentrate on growing as much food as we can this year, because we've got a big project over there in the vegetable garden.
Well, behind me is the area that you may recognise as our current vegetable plot, or at least part of it. This is the area that Stephen built when we moved in. So there already was a vegetable plot, which we'll show you in just a second. But the polytunnel and these 4 beds in the background of where I'm talking are what we built when we moved in. And ever since then, we've been trying to find the best way to expand.
As you can see, where Tracy's just come from is what we call our new bit of vegetable area. This is over here is the original veg plot which was there when we moved in, and where I'm stood now was basically an unproductive, more decorative area. It just had hedges in and a few fir trees and stuff like that. So we did have an idea of putting a polytunnel on here, and when we cleared out all of the trees and the bushes that were here, it opened up the light. Like, I don't know if you've seen on one of our other videos how much light it let through to the veg garden bit. So we've scrapped the polytunnel idea because of the amount of shade it'll produce on that area, which is not what we want. So we've come up with another idea, and I'm already in the middle of turning it into a new raised bed area. So in the past few months, while I've had the weather, I've just built 4 compost bins ready for that, and this is going to be all membraned with the breathable membrane, and we're going to put a slab path down in front of the compost bins. And then we acquired a load of railway sleepers for free off Marketplace a few months ago, so they've just been in the barn storing for the right project. Well, this is the project it's going to be for. So they're going to make all raised beds in here. As well as this, we're also going to extend another bit of the veg plot, because we have been looking how to maximise our growing space. We tried down the bottom where Tracy showed you earlier, but because it's out of the way and it's not all together, it was neglected. We didn't get to it as much as we did with this, and it just wasn't really productive for us. So hopefully, because this is all kept in one place, it'll be as productive as it can be. So if Tracy just wants to turn around, I'll show you what we're going to do with the other bit. Right, where we've just come from on the other side of this trellis is where we're going to extend the veg plot with the raised beds. But also, the weather that we've had has destroyed all these posts with this trellis, so we're going to have to replace it. So what we thought was, we'll extend it even more. So we're going to hopefully try and keep all the trellises by cutting them away from the posts. And then when we do replace it, we're going to build it down this area here. So we're going to come from the gate which goes into the veg plot, and we're just going to run the trellis, instead of it going that way, down this way. Now this is where the chickens are currently, and it's a little orchard. It's got 4 really good productive apple trees in it, a damson tree and a cherry tree. So we're going to extend that and make this the extension of that orchard. So we're going to put plum trees in it, maybe some more pear trees. We've already got a really productive cherry tree and 2 pear trees there, so we just want to add value to the land that we've got. So by replacing this trellis over here and extending the veg plot into this bit, I think that'll be a really good addition to the whole veg growing area.
So similar to what Stephen was talking about over behind the barn, there is a lot of tidy up work here. So there is a lot of tubs that we use where we tried to grow potatoes and different fruits and veg in them, and some of it worked and some of it didn't. So we've got a lot of learning that we'll talk about in some of the gardening vlogs that we do in the future about that. But for the meantime, we're going to get all of this tidied up. Now, if we put the trellis where Stephen was saying, basically along from the current veg plot all the way down to the fence on the perimeter, that does mean that we will lose a lot of space for what is the chickens area at the moment. Now, when I showed you the shed over in the paddock area, and we said that would become the chickens' summer residence, all tongue in cheek, but there is a serious tone behind it, because we want to make sure the chickens have got as much ground as possible. So we're going to move our older birds, which are the ones that you can see here, that we've got all the different coloured, and they provide us with different coloured eggs. They're all going to move over into the paddock, into that shed, which will free up this space for the birds that we got last year, where we got 24 hens, 24 chicks that consisted of Rhode Island Reds and Welsumers, and they are what are behind this fence here that you can see for the barn work that Stephen did last year, which we'll also talk about in a minute, because that was a really good piece of work there. So that will free up all of this space here for those hens, because obviously they're now getting bigger. There's actually a few cockerels in there as well.
Right, well, it's getting a bit brass monkeys outside, so we just thought we'd come back in the barn and finish off the video and tell you a few more things about what we've got planned for the year. First of all, just how productive the barn project's been since we moved all the ducks and the chickens and the goats and everything all in one place. They've been prolific with the egg laying. These are all off the ducks. They're messy because it's the ducks and it's winter. So we've got a plan for them later. But also, when Tracy was on about moving the old chickens back down to the shed outside, that's because our chicken project that we had on was to get Welsumers for egg layers and Rhode Island Reds for meat and eggs. So these should be productive in about March time, and around about then we're going to have a split up. So we're going to get all the Welsumers together and move them in where the old chickens currently are when the old chickens go back down to the shed, and keep the Welsumers and the Rhode Island Reds separate, so that we can collect the eggs up, start breeding them again, so that we're going to try and maximise our income as well from the smallholding this year. So we'll be raising ducks for meat, for ducklings to sell and for eggs. Also with the Welsumers, mainly they're our egg layers, so they'll be eggs to sell and to eat, because we'll hopefully, if everything goes right, we'll just have an abundance of them. And our chickens for meat, which we used to buy as Ross Cobb's little Franklin chickens, we stopped doing them because it just really wasn't ethical the way we were doing it and stuff. So that's why we bought the Rhode Island Reds. They'll be hopefully for our meat production, and you'll also get eggs off them as well. So also with the Rhode Island Reds, they'll be to sell as day-old chicks, and maybe if they grow as point of layers hens as well, because they go for an absolute fortune. So that'll be to maximise our income. And talking about that, we're going to take them duck eggs that we've collected up over the last couple of days in the house, get them cleaned and get them in the incubator, which we've had running on since last night.
Right, we need to go and get these eggs in the incubator because it is blooming freezing now. But before we do, one thing that making all of these pens here in the barn has created is a bit of a mess just behind me there. So Stephen has decided that he's going to turn that area into a bit of a chicken shed and a run all for the chicks that he's going to be raising over the next couple of weeks and months. So if you're interested in seeing how he gets on with that, then join in, because we're going to be doing the weekly vlogs as we move into next year, and once a month we'll probably be giving you a bit of a project update. So that's just a quick look around the Smallholding in January of 2024, and a little chat about the projects that we know that we've got on, because no doubt there'll be a million more that we don't yet know about. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and tune in to see what we get up to as the year goes on.
And see what we get achieved.